Okay, sorry about that. I just had a phone call. I turned my phone off so there won't be any interruptions. Couldn't figure out how to continue that last tutorial, so I'm just going to do part two. Here we are. We're in the shower of this tiny little apartment, and I showed you how to edit this one on part one. So let's just continue and show you some other uh, things that we need to do. Here we go. This is the bathroom shot. Again, you can see there's white here, so we can do our color balance. What I notice I just analyze each photo and see what I need to do different for each one. What I'm looking at here is these highlights are blown out. We definitely have a blue cyan cast here and here. And my little lens is in the picture. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up here at the top, just like we did before. Get the exposure right. So color balance, let's just click that. Click on the white and let's see if that changes anything. It definitely looks a little bit warmer. We can take some of that yellow out over here, just a little bit, just so it's not quite so harsh. You can actually pinpoint certain spots that you want to take the yellow out. Let's just say this is more yellow compared to this. So you can actually click on this doohickey right here. You make a little target area. Move it how you like it. So we're going to just take some yellow out of this area here. And just a little bit. These things are all messed up, so we double click effects. Just add a little bit of blue. Just a dab. A dab would do you. I don't like going over 20, so we're going to go 16, 17. That looks better, doesn't it? You can also, with this, make the highlights go down. You see how we're getting more detail in those highlights just on those lights? I think that looks a lot better there, don't you? I think it does. And maybe a little bit of dehaze, just a dab. A dab would do you. We'll get off of that tool. You see the difference there? Where did I start that editing? That was the first thing I edited. So here compared to there. Slightly better. Okay, so we got the color balance right. So now we're going to do the whole picture. We can also bring some of those highlights down because the histogram is really heavy on the right side and heavy on the left. So we can actually go down sometimes just going all the way, both sides, and see what it looks like. I mean, that looks okay. People love that HDR effect, basically. That's what this is, the HDR effect. We're still a little bit heavy on the right side, so we can bring this down just a dab, just a dab. We want a nice, healthy, and it's a little bit on the dark side because these are dark walls. And that little white spike right there, that's this stuff here. All right, now we're going to crop this. This definitely needs to be cropped. Let's just go down to the bottom here. So we don't need to do any, maybe a little bit of dehaze, not much, a tiny bit, a little bit of vibrance. I mean, this looks pretty good the way it is. You know, if it looks good, you don't need to do too much. You don't want to over-process. That's one of the biggest mistakes people make is over-processing their images. Okay, so now we're going to push auto. Let's just see what that does for us. Didn't do anything because it was already perfectly straight. Good photography. I don't like this camera. We can either clone it out or crop it in. Let's just crop it in. Let's see what that does. So if we go to crop, when you have it, this will be locked. That means it'll stay this aspect ratio. So let's just crop that lens out. See that? Job done. Move it up a little bit. We could probably even do a little bit more, get rid of a lot of this empty brown space, and do composition. So a little bit here on the side instead of all of that. And we brought the line down. We're not cutting off anything. Everything looks good. Everything is still in the picture. That looks a little bit out of focus, if you noticed. Double click. We wanted to make that sharper. Let's just make a little circle here. Double click this effect. So it goes, all these things go down to 0. Let's just sharpen this a little bit. Not too much. Does that look sharper? I don't see much of a difference, but it's too much feather. See any difference? Before, after. No difference. But that's very rare you see that. Let's go to the next one. Same thing. Look at the color on these walls. Really changed this this color balance. So let's see what the colors really are. This is definitely a white ceiling, so we can cheat and use this white. Ooh, that looks a lot cleaner, doesn't it? All right. Pretty healthy histogram. We just got a tiny spike there, which is this light bulb. We can get rid of that just like this. See that light bulb come into, and then this is a little bit dark. We can cheat a little bit on that. That looks good. Now the way you can spread this histogram out a little bit is by adding contrast. You see that? You make it fatter. And look how it just makes a lot punchier photo. I don't think we need to do too much with this other stuff here, colors and everything. If you wanted to take this blue out of the sky, there's no other blue in the picture. So just by reducing this blue, we can get rid of that. It's not so obvious. See that? Scrolling down. Sharpening, we really don't need any sharpening. Luminance, I don't see any problem there. Watch this line change. You see how it's kind of curved? That's caused by lens distortion. When you click those buttons, it should straighten that out. Voila. And I mean, it looks pretty straight. I try to make everything straight as possible, although sometimes if I'm shooting under, to get it straight, if I have to shoot under a countertop, I'll go over the countertop and then tilt the camera down, and you have to push that auto. And you see it didn't do a thing. It's just because it's perfect. Go to the next one. White ceiling again. Now I've got two different kinds of shoots that I do. Shots I do. Color balance. See how the color balance changed that? This histogram is pretty solid. What was I saying just now? I don't know. So we're going to go down the deal here. Sharpen we don't need to do. We always click this. Auto. Straighten that up. And I think that looks pretty good. I mean, if you saw the place, it's not the greatest place in the world, but it's a cute little place for some single guy to fix up and call his own. Same thing, we'll go over, start at the top. This is going to the left, so we're going to bring it over just a little bit. Bring that contrast. You can close that up a little bit by making less contrast. So the color balance looked good. The maybe a little bit of vibrance. There's not much you can do. I like to get rid of some of this blue here, just a little bit. Not much, just a little bit. You don't have to do the whole thing. And I think that looks pretty good. See what happens, how that changes it. And push auto. Let's see, that straightened it up pretty good. Moving on. This color balance looks pretty darn good. I probably won't change a bit. Histogram looks good. We got a little spike here from this light. Get rid of that by moving the highlights down. Now when you move the highlights down, you still have that spike. You can do the exposure a little bit and then bring the shadows up. See how I did that? And that creates like an HDR look. People love that HDR look. And we could get rid of some of that blue, but I really don't think it's necessary on this shot. Maybe a dab it, do you? So the next one, we'll definitely get rid of that blue. Start at the top. The histogram's a little bit heavy on the left. Bring it down just a little bit. Bring that spike out of there. You see that? Bring a little bit of the shadows. Clarity. Sharpening we don't need to do. I will take a little of this blue out there. That's a little bit strong for me. It's a little bit too much. Just a tad. And it's got that glass look now. Scroll down, we gotta click this. And we gotta click the auto. Now this one's not quite perfect. This part over here kind of is distracting. I can get rid of a lot of that by cropping. And let's crop from this side, crop to the bottom of that door handle. And maybe up, not cutting off the light. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? So you want to make the picture look good, so you got to crop out stuff that you don't like. Here's another room. You can see that's off a little bit. Histogram's over to the right. We're going to move that to the left, more center. Get those highlights down. Shadows up. Color balance. Looks pretty darn accurate. Sharpening we don't need to do. We did this already. Let's watch this window change. You see that window straighten up? Flip. Too much. Too much. And see this one here, the line is too much as well. And I don't know why it did that, but we can fix that using the vertical tool. See that? When you push the tool, you see the grid. You can line things up to the grid. So I think that looks a lot better. Although we do have, if you look at the bottom, we can straighten that line up. The very bottom grid line, you see how I changed that just a little bit. I like everything to be perfect. Again, just always click that constrain crop because you might not notice a little white patch on one of the corners one time. We do have a little bit of cyan cast right here in this corner. You can fix that stuff just by clicking a corner like this with the effects. And then let's just add a little bit of yellow to that. See that? And you don't really notice that there's that cyan cast in the corner. We're almost done with this shoot. I can fly through the stuff if you want. I know this is a long tour, but I'm teaching a lot of little things that will make a big difference. Keep that histogram in the middle, bring those highlights down, shadows up. Usually that's where I start, and then I tweak it from there. This looks pretty solid. Maybe a little bit of contrast. Let's leave it like that. We're going to go down. Let's get some blue out for those windows. Too much blue out. So let's just do a little bit and a little bit like this. So we can find that little spot there. Put it kind of in the middle. Make sure you have it feathered a little bit. That's maybe too much feather. And then we can actually add yellow to this to turn this color correct it a little bit better. There's a lot. There's a little. The reason I do this is because if you just take and desaturate the blue, what ends up is everything blue turns gray. If you add yellow to that blue thing, you're going to maintain the color balance better. All right, start at the top. Color balance on the ceiling looks pretty darn good. Exposure looks pretty good. A little bit on the highlight. And now it's a little bit heavy. We can bring that contrast up. Maybe that shadow. So now we got a nice histogram there. Let's take some of that blue out. Not too much because we're going to add some yellow instead. Let's just go flat, put it in the middle. Make sure we got a lot of too much. And you could kind of get closer. I mean, this is pretty. It might be a little bit too much, but it's not bad. I might reduce a little bit more blue. We do have some yellow in there for the floor. Instead of gray floor, we have some yellow took out the blue. Front door shot, start at the top. Histogram needs to come up just a little bit because it's all white. Everything is white, so it should be leaning to the right, correct? Correct. So that's a good exposure right there. Let's bring those highlights down and shadows up because people love that HDR effect. All right, get a little bit of clarity, a little bit of dehaze. See that up there? Okay, so we don't need to take any, there's no color cast in this. It looks great. Sharpening, it looks sharp. Lens profiling, you see that change? A little bit of difference. Auto. That's it. And go to the next. Last photo, which actually was the first photo. This is a solid histogram right here, let me tell you. Color balance looks pretty good. And we don't have to touch this, it looks perfect. Saturation we don't need, sharpening we don't need. Let's see what happens when we click this. Straighten that up, okay. Push auto, let's see what that does. I think it straightened everything up pretty good. And you can tell by mousing over the transform button, and you can see the grid and compare things to the grid. It is tilting a little bit, but it's pretty good for government work. Let's rotate it just slightly. You see that difference that made? Okay. And that concludes how I edit standard photography.